Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this episode of the Values of Ashura. During our previous session, there was mention of the three levels of life: the life of the body, the life of the heart, and the life of the society. Now, the life of the body is commonly understood, but how do you explain the life of the heart and the life of the society? This question and many more will be answered during today's discussion by Sheikh Afzal Merali. Sheikh, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So, when you refer to the life of the heart and to the life of the society, what does it mean?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى صحبهم الأخيار المنتجبين وعلى جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. السلام عليك يا مولاي، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. أعظم الله أجرنا بمصابنا بأبي عبد الله عليه السلام. May Allah and grant our reward for our loss and our grief over Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Thank you for having me. We continue. In our last episode we talked about the levels of life in a human being. The first level which we mentioned was the level of the body. The body has life. This life is when the soul has a direct attachment to the body. Of course, the soul, because of the fact that it is not material, in Islamic philosophy, we don't say that the soul enters the body, even though in the Quran it is as such, but this is metaphorical. What is actually is that the soul is a higher plane of existence, and the soul controls the body, and it is attached to it in the sense that it has a relation to it. It has a connection to the body. So when this connection of the body, of the soul to the body is severed, that is when a person dies, the body dies. And as such, some consequences happen, which is the fact that the body needs ghusl al-mayyit. It has to be camphor, it has to be buried. With regards to the heart, that is when the life of the heart is the fact that it remembers Allah. When the heart has this remembrance of Allah constant in it, it is considered alive. However, if the heart slowly starts to die away and to go towards negligence and la'b wa lahu and vanity and forgetfulness of Allah Azza wa Jal, this is when the heart dies. And this dying of the heart can reach to such a blackness that a person becomes a murtad, an infidel, a disbeliever in Allah Azza wa Jal, as was the case with Yazid. Yes. Yazid said in one of the poems of poetry before Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam and the captives of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, لعبت هاشم بالملك فلا خبر جاء ولا وحي نزل. Bani Hashim played with kingdom, not prophethood, with kingdom. He rejected that there was such a thing as prophethood. And no news came from the heavens, nor any revelation descended. So he did not believe in the Prophet, in the Quran, in anything at all. So this is the life of the heart. After this, we come to the life of the society. The life of the society is considered by how this society holds on to the values, the human and Islamic values. If a society holds on to these values, it can be considered as a society which is alive. However, if these values become lost, helping people, refusing oppression, refusing, for example, eating haram mal, etc., and performing prohibited acts, this society is considered dead.
As a follow-up to your description of dead societies, the Ummah at the time of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, what kind of life was left in them?
Alright, with regards to the Ummah at the time of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, what had happened with the Ummah was that it has slowly started to deviate from the path of Islam, the path of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What had happened was, during the life of Imam Ali alayhi salam, the caliphate was usurped from him. And many different things were happened. The Ridda wars were unjustly happened, or unjustly performed and carried out against some of the Yemeni tribes. We also had other things. For example, during the life of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, the Kufians betrayed him when he was going out to face Muawiyah, and as a result he was forced to perform the truce. But this reached to such a level that after Muawiyah, who was a covert oppressor, a covert disbeliever, if I were to say, in the sense that he did not believe in the values of Islam and the ahkam of Islam properly. He saw that this caliphate is only a monarchy, it is only a kingdom that he wants to inherit his son. And he even betrayed the articles of the truce which he had with Imam Hassan, sorry. In addition to the fact that it was he who started the practice of cursing Imam alayhi salam from the pulpits. And he would also, due to the strong media apparatus that he had made the people of Sham believe that Imam alayhi salam does not even pray. So he had shown them an Umayyad Islam. Muawiyah was as such. He was taking the pulpit of the Prophet for his own goods, for his own reasons, but in a very, very cheap, deceiving way. People thought he was good, but he was not. As for Yazid, he did not possess that high level of intelligence. Yazid was overtly, as Imam Hussein alayhi salam, sharibun al-khamr. He would openly drink wine. He would kill souls without any reasons. La'ibul qirada, he would play with apes. What kind of Muslim caliph plays with apes for his pastime? What kind of hobby is this? Is this the level, the caliph, the successor of the Prophet? When this ummah accepted and did not revolt to such a caliph, and when Imam Hussein alayhi salam was telling them during the Hajj season that, "O Muslims, come with me in order to face and remove and uproot these roots of oppression and revive the values of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam," what excuse did they have? What did they say? They told Imam Hussein alayhi salam, "Oh Imam Hussein, let's go now, let's perform Hajj. We're performing Hajj."
So they had started practicing the rituals of Islam like prayer and Hajj, but they did not give a second thought to why they have to perform them. They didn't try to understand the meaning.
With regards to the values, with regards to the philosophy, with regards to the core, they did not have that. They did not have any cognizance with regards to this. It was just rituals and rites that they were performing. They were only Muslims by name, if I were to say, because they were used to these customs. So as a result, what Imam actually wanted to do is not only perform Hajj, he wanted to save the Hajj.
Yes.
And as a result, he was forced to take the further steps that he did. Now over here, if I were to just conclude this answer, the death of a ummah and a society comes when this society becomes void of the values of Amr ibn Ma'ruf wa Nahy al-Munkar. Amr ibn Ma'ruf wa Nahy al-Munkar, according to many narrations, is one of the most important obligations by which Allah Azza wa Jal makes the other things, the other obligations come together. I mean, I just quote a hadith from Hussein alayhi salam. He says, Allah has commanded the obligation of Amr al-Ma'ruf wa Nahy al-Munkar because if this obligation gets delivered and established, then all other difficult and simple obligation will also get established. People advise one another, do this is correct, no, this is not. The reason behind this is that Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy al-Munkar is an invitation towards Islam. These are the proper articles of the Islamic faith. People who don't know them, we could teach them under the context of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy al-Munkar. It is the return of usurped rights. It is also opposition to oppressors like Yazid, which the Ummah was not doing. It is a righteous distribution of booties and taxes. During the Umayyad time, they would consider whatever booty is taken from the other fronts, the Persian or the Roman front, these are their personal articles, their personal wealth. They would not consider it as part of the Muslim treasury, and as a result, they would not distribute it to the proper Muslims, the proper people who needed it. It is a means to collect charity from appropriate places and to distribute it to the deserving ones. This is some of what the philosophy of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy al-Munkar is, which without it, a society is considered dead.
So now, when society reaches a point where the values are weakening and they are now being transformed into a dead society, so can the situation be reversed?
Of course, this is something very evident from the martyrdom of Imam Hussein or from his resistance, from his revolt, from his uprising in the beginning. This uprising, let's say, for example, with regards to the values, the three steps that the Prophet, or the three levels that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, he says that how will you be, the narration that we mentioned, how will you be, O people, O companions of mine, when the ma'ruf, the good, will not be abided by, and the munkar, the rejected, will not be left alone. And the people said, would that be? Will such a time come? The Prophet thereafter said, then how will you be when the ma'ruf is advised against, and the rejected, the munkar, is advised by? The people said, would this happen? The Prophet reached to a higher level, and how will you be when the ma'ruf becomes munkar and the munkar becomes ma'ruf? This process takes a lot of time. It takes many years. But this is reversible when a big shock happens. A big shock happens which shakes the roots of this deviation. Imam Hussein alayhi salam wanted to practically come out. Not only some of the people, Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, for example, advised Imam Hussein alayhi salam to do Amr al-Ma'ruf wa Nahy al-Munkar from Makkah in the beginning. Thereafter they told them Yemen, but I'll explain why the Imam did not choose Yemen, even though the Yemenis were some of the best followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Among them, the most, the well-known companion of Imam alayhi salam, Malik al-Ashtar. With regards to the Imam Hussein alayhi salam, why did he personally choose to practically come out? Because I'll give a very simple example just to simplify this and make it easier for the viewers to understand. If a certain council has traffic laws, a country has traffic laws, will it suffice for the Ministry of Interior to just issue a couple of laws that these are the traffic laws that you have to abide by, all citizens, and to just stay at home, they stay in offices, and they hope for people to follow them? Of course, this would not happen. No. They need people to enforce the law. Yes. Enforcing the law is very important because of the fact that the human nature is as such. When there is no side, there is no people, there is no group of people who enforce this law, our human nature is as such that we will not follow the law. We will start to go against it. We won't give a bother. But when there is a law and when there is punishment for going against the law, something will happen. Now, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, as such, chose not to just preach from the pulpits of Mecca or Mina during the time of Hajj, not only to do that, because of the fact that he knew that this would not be enough. So as a result, he chose to go out.
Yes.
He chose to go out to Iraq, to Kufa at that time, because of many reasons. A few of them I'll mention. Number one, Kufa had a huge number of, and this with regards to its population, it was high. After the Futuhat, the conquest of Persia, and the conquest of Rome as well, a huge number of Muslims had left Medina and Mecca at that time. So Hijaz was empty of those very high personalities, those important companions, those Sahaba of the Prophet. They had all moved out to Kufa, and that time Sham as well. But to take Kufa over here. Secondly, Kufa was the capital of Imam alayhi salam.
Yes. So
for this reason, the companions remembered, the people of Kufa remembered the positions of Al-Hasanayn alayhi salam. Imam Hussein, especially his position before the Prophet. Thirdly, Kufa was a trade center. If a thawra or a revolution or an uprising is to happen, money is needed. Yemen at that time was very poor. Kufa was rich. It was a trade center, a huge number of population. It was a huge market. So as a result, those people who did call the Imam Hussein alayhi salam to come, they did have finances. And as a result, this would help them.
So as a trade center, Kufa would also make it possible for the message to spread that there's an uprising going on.
Exactly. I mean, this huge number of population, this huge number of people, tribes, some of the tribes also have sub-tribes outside Kufa. Okay, so what this will do is this will give Imam Hussein alayhi salam more support. We had 18,000 letters sent to the Imam. And in addition to this, the terrain of Kufa and the terrain of Iraq is far better. I mean, even though it's sandy and hilly, etc., but it is better than the terrain of Yemen, which is all mountainous. Now, this is very hard for a resistance, for a huge uprising. Finally, we have the fact that Yemen is in the farthest corner of the Islamic state.
Yes.
So how can one do a resistance and uprising from the corner? You have to go face to face.
Yes.
Kufa was face to face. So as a result, Kufa was chosen. So the Imam, I conclude, chose to practically come out and do something in order to make the Ummah to make the Ummah wake up again.
So we have established the meaning of living and dead societies, and I'd like to go back to a particular trait of the society at that time. They were following without understanding the values and the principles and the philosophy behind it, and that was one of their traits which played an important role when they deserted the Imam. They just abided by the law. They didn't know what they were doing. So the worst thing for us today would be to revert to the same situation. How do we prevent that?
Okay. First of all, just starting with regards to over there, I just want to correct something. It is not that when they left the Imam, they were just following law. Actually, they weren't following the law. Because the Imam was wajib al-ta'a.
Yes.
He was the person who they had to follow. His obedience was obligatory. And the Prophet said many things, like for example, Al-Hasan and Hussein, Imamani qama aw qa'ada. Al-Hasan and Hussein are two Imams, whether they sit or they rise. And subhanAllah, Imam Hassan alayhi salam sat down, but with the truth and the proper way, not that he was a coward. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam on the other hand stood up. So these two are infallibles. When the Prophet said they are two Imams, that means that he's calling people to follow them. When he's doing as such because he himself is infallible and he does not speak out of his own whim, that means that these two people are infallible. So they were not following the law. For an ummah to not
distorted the law at the point in Makkah when
the law was distorted, and there
Yes.
were many people, there were many naive people, or if I were to say, most of them were naive and ignorant. Ignorant of the truth of Islam, of the core of Islam. That had not passed that many years for them to be able to reach the core of Islam. But alhamdulillah, right now, we have reached this huge number of years. Or the fact that most of the people did not seek that much benefit like those important companions of the Imams, like Malik al-Ashtar and all these other people. Just to come back over here, how for us to prevent our own situation reaching as such? First of all, we have to go further into the core of what our religion is. For example, we have salat. With regards to the salat, with regards to the namaz, the prayer, there are certain books, first of all, books of narrations that talk to us about the value of salat, the importance of salat, the rewards for salat, and the punishment for not praying salat. This is number one. In addition to this, we have some books of Arfan, books of Gnosticism, which have been translated into English for those who speak English only. Like the book of the Adab al-Salat of Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayh. These books actually show us what the core of salat is. When a person reads such a book and the du'as that are coupled with the salat, when the person makes their salat as such, the most important point to start up, the most important and core place to start is salat. When the salat is proper, a human being, subhanAllah, the same salat which is also present in Karbala, which is present in Salat al-Layl in Karbala, and at the same time it is present in the Salat al-Dhuhr in Karbala, which is of Salat al-Khaif, which had a shorter form. But what I mean over here to point out is the fact that when the salah becomes proper, this will open the door for spirituality, for different levels of perfection to a human being in the other fields of their life. If a salat becomes proper, one will also think, well, what about Sawm? It is not that we just have to fast 30 days a month and then just to prevent us from eating, and that's it. No. Salat, the Sawm itself also has a certain meaning. According to some riwayat, there are 3 levels of Sawm. According to many Gnostics, there are 3 levels of Sawm. The first is Sawm Ahl al-Sharia. for one to just look at the different levels of, so for example, not to commit the muharramat of a Sawm, and to commit the wajibat, niyyah, etc., not to eat, etc. This is the very basic level. Okay? There is a second level called Sawm Ahlul Tariqah. They follow a certain path of mustahabbat, of du'as, etc., to reach a certain level of spirituality. Of course, this can be mentioned in other lectures. Each of these levels it has a lot of details.
Yes.
Sawm Ahlul Haqiqah. These people who fast and actually they observe Allah Azza wa Jal. They look towards Allah when they fast. It is not only they are doing this, it's just not eating or only doing some mustahabbat and dua. No, Sawm for them is an entirely different spiritual reality. It is a huge ascension into the different planes of spirituality. This is Sawm Ahl al-Haqiqah. So when we in our society over here look towards the core of Islam, we will inshallah slowly start to reach towards what Imam Hussein was calling to.
So to prevent ourselves from reverting to that situation, we need to realize the importance of religious education as well as secular education. There shouldn't be a separation between the two.
I mean, over here, of course, I'm not talking about the fact that secular education is not important. I'm not talking about it at all.
Important.
But I'm talking about religious education over here. I'm not only talking about religious education, no. I'm talking about religious readings, culture. One should look at different, visit the maqams, do the different ziyarat of the prophets, of the Prophet and the Imma, alayhimus salam, the shuhada, and the awliya. There are many different things. One should sit with the ulama more often. One should visit the graves and remember that we also have to go into this place one day. One should remember the day of Qiyamah, reading Quran. All these different things help a person continue on.
Okay. So now, another point to discuss is that for the enemies of Islam, Ashura is a chance to point fingers and say that the Battle of Karbala was a battle of power. But Imam himself said that his aim was Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. So what kind of war did Imam fight, and how was that war different from the war of power?
Alright, first of all, let me just start over here. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when he initially left Mecca and was going to Kufa, he had 1,200 fighters. The Imam had 1,200 fighters. These 1,200 fighters slowly started to leave him, and in the night of Ashura, most of them left him, save 72 companions. Why was this, I wonder? This was because these people had come with the Imam only for the spoils that the Imam would receive. So when the Imam told them that I am not looking for spoils, my war is another kind of war. My war is for Amr al-Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. I'm not looking for power, authority. Okay? I'm not looking for this. Then, as a result, many of them left. From 1,200, only 72 remained. That actually points out this fact. In addition to this, for the Imam, if he actually wanted a war of power, the war of power is different from the war of values. A war of power has different levels or has different rules with regards to its outcome. If one wants to win a war of power, one has to have advanced weaponry and different forms of weaponry, including media, including other forms of chemical warfare, etc., etc. Numbers of soldiers, etc. They have to be well properly trained, etc. Whereas those who fought with the Imam were not as such. We have 90-year-olds. We have children, youth, 11-year-olds. We have 14-year-olds, etc. The Imam was not looking for authority. The Imam's war, the war of values, on the other hand, has another way of looking at how it is won. The war of values can even be won by a 90-year-old or a 6-month-old, like Abdullah al-Radiyah. It can also be won by women, Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam. This war of values it is considered or is discerned if it's won by how this shock or this message or this news is received by the masses. When the people of Ba'labak when the captives were taken to Syria, to Damascus from Karbala, they were actually taken from a long route. They were taken from Karbala to Tikrit to Mosul. They were thereafter taken to southern Turkey, to Nasibin and other areas. Then after to Aleppo. Thereafter they were taken to Homs. Thereafter they were taken to Lebanon. When they came to in many different cities, for example in Homs itself, when they came to know that these are not Kharijites, these women folk are not women folk of Kharijites who have gone against Yazid, that these are the Ahl al-Bayt, they came and they wanted to massacre and kill all the soldiers who were with them. The soldiers ran away. When they were in Ba'labak, the ruler of Ba'labak, under the Umayyads, ordered for the people to decorate the city. But when they actually came to know that this was the caravan of Ahlul Bayt alayhim, they came out and started to chase the soldiers. They wanted to kill them. So from this we can come to see that this war of values are actually one. Whereas right now, let's look at any military coup. Gaddafi, for example, right now, in this last year, Gaddafi was fought against, and in the end he was killed. His regime was removed. What does this mean? Because of the fact that his war was one of power, he was fighting his own people for power.
Yes.
He hasn't won. I mean, he died, and his authority went with them. Other people won because they were the ones who took the authority. Just like Mubarak, just like other people. Alright? But with regards to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, because of the fact that the way he fought his war, with what he fought his war, and how the outcome of his war was, we can come to see that his war was different, and number two was one.
So you mentioned that in the city of Homs, the people wanted to kill the soldiers who had taken the women captive. So at the time of Ashura, where were they? Weren't they informed that the Imam has taken to the fields of Karbala?
At that time, even though there were many followers or lovers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim in the different parts of the world, but the concept of Imam was not that much known. So because of the fact that the concept of Imam was not that much understood properly, what we just mentioned, that the Imam was wajib al-ta'a, his obedience was obligatory, this was not understood and perceived by all people, number one. But because of the fact that he was one of the two heavenly sons of the Prophet, Rihanat min al-Jannah, Rihanatay min al-Jannah, Hassan al-Hussein alayhi salam, because of the fact that they were so loved by the Prophet, when this happened to them, because out of the love of the Prophet they uprose. The second reason is the fact that at that time the media or the communication or the distances were so far. Because of this, the message had not reached that soon at that time. And the distance at that time between Syria and Iraq was huge, so they could not come to the aid of the Imam. In addition to this, many people may not know, but there were thousands of Kufis who wanted to come to the aid of the Imam, these people were they were imprisoned when Ibn Ziyad came from Basra to Kufa in order to take the reins of power over there, to take the rule over there. And people like Al-Mukhtar al-Thaqafi, who were one of the main helpers of Muslim bin Aqil, Mukhtar al-Thaqafi was imprisoned as well. Mukhtar al-Thaqafi was imprisoned as well. So as a result, many were imprisoned. With regards to some people, no, it is blatantly clear, like the At-Tawabun, Sulaiman bin Surad al-Khuza'i. Sulaiman bin Surad was one of the people, these were some of the people who wrote to Imam Hussein to come. But when Muslim bin Aqil came, they told Muslim, no, don't come out, don't fight, don't go and face Ibn Ziyad right now. Let the Imam come. Alright? And even when the Imam came, they didn't do anything. Thereafter, they started to see, Allah, why did we do this? Alright.
It was too late.
Exactly, it was too late. It was too late, an-nadam. Alright, it was too late. And as a result, in the end, even they did something very foolish in Thawrat al-Tawabin, the Tawabin's uprising. But many people thereafter started to form their own uprisings in order to repent for what they did. So there were some people who, out of their naive minds, There was also another class of people who, no, they didn't even want to help the Imam, they just loved the world.
Yes.
Right? And these were the kinds of people who were bought by Muawiyah.
So back to the war of values and the war of power. Now the manner of perpetrating these wars is different. The criteria for winning them is different. Now, do these differences extend to the role of women in these wars as well?
Of course, jihad, also I'll start with jihad. Jihad is not wajib, it's not obligatory on women primarily. If the situation has changed, the hukam changed, the fatwa changes as well. But primarily, jihad is not wajib. The war of power, if it is for selfish reasons, and most of the time it is, this war of power is not wajib, of course, on women. Maybe maybe in some circumstances, it can also be prohibited. Okay, but with regards to the war of values, this war of values, women have a certain role in it. I'll just refer to the words of Imam Hussein and the event of Ashura itself. When the Imam was in Mecca, he met, or Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah, his half-brother, came to him and said to the Imam, Imam, Hussein, stay in Mecca. The Imam said that I'm afraid Yazid will kill me. The Imam Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah was persistent and he told him, think about it. The Imam, the second day when he came, he was leaving, he was looking to leave for Kufa.
Yes.
Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah said, did you not give me your word that you would think about it? The Imam said, at night, the Prophet of Allah ﷺ came to me in a dream. And he told me, Sha'Allahu an yaraka qatilan. Allah wants to see you martyred. Wa sha'Allah an yarahunna sabaya. And Allah wishes to see them captives. Of course, not out of injustice, of course, not just for them to be punished or to see the faces calamities. No, but there is actually wisdom in this. The role of women in this war of values is the fact that Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam especially was the media outlet for the uprising of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The message of his uprising was carried by Sayyidah Zainab throughout all these different villages and towns and cities through which the captives caravan passed.
Yes, so the war of values didn't end with the death of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. It
this
continued.
war of values, of course, is such a war that continues even after the death. Or in fact, it has to continue after the death. It has to start with the death, moreover. So when Yazid's plan was to shame these women, all right, to make people, to shame these women, the captives of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. But what happened was that this plan backfired. When the people saw them, when the people saw the luminous head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when the different miracles happened, when, for example, after many days of his martyrdom, fresh drops of blood would trickle, which would stain the stone, for example, like in the Masjid al-Nuqta in Aleppo, this drop of blood, which is still seeable, still visible today. I mean, after 1,300 years, or almost 1,300 years. It's something amazing. Normally, if a drop of blood trickles on even a cloth, right, it quickly goes away. Let alone a stone, a rock. It has remained many years. And sometimes what happens is, even on the day of Ashura, it reddens more. When the head speaks to some people, to one of the fathers, one of the priests, the Christian priests, who embraces Islam as such, when this head, for example, when it's recited some verses of Quran after the martyrdom of Muhammad, all what this did, and what Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam did in the courts of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, when she spoke to him with courage and with strength of heart and with that eloquence of Imam Ali alayhi salam, she shook Ibn Ziyad. And when she came to Yazid, this was even worse. She shook Yazid. The people of Sham started to cry about what happened to them. The first one to do Majlis Aza, a Majlis, was the wife of Yazid. The first one. So what happened with Sayyidah Zainab alayhi salam, she was a continuous of the message of Imam Hussein, that If it had not been for her, this message would not have reached the Islamic Ummah, and as a result, the outcome and the fruits of the martyrdom of Muhammad Islam would not have been as such.
Okay. And also during the previous episode there was mentioned that there are 3 levels of practicing Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. But when Imam alayhi salam said that he wanted to reform the nation through Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar, how did he uphold these values?
Alright, like I mentioned in the last episode, there are 3 levels. The first and the weakest level, the lowest level is that of the heart. Is that for a person to see a munkar and just detest it in their heart.
To acknowledge it.
To just acknowledge that this is a munkar and detest it in their heart. For example, someone is not fasting, okay, during the month of Ramadan. So a person just looks at them and says, do this with their heart. They just detest this action. The second level is for one to speak, okay, for one to speak and tell that person that this is haram, etc., etc. The third level of Amr al-Ma'ruf and Nahy al-Munkar is no. When a person is doing this in the Islamic State, there is a had, there is a punishment for such a person. If the first time this person does so, he is taken and the Hakim al-Shara'i, after of course certain steps, maybe the second or third time, this person is actually given a certain punishment. Okay, so this is the third level of Amr al-Ma'ruf and Nahy al-Munkar. Imam Hussein alayhi salam was looking to perform this level. Detesting with the heart and speaking was not enough. This is what the people of the Muslims who are coming to Hajj were asking the Imam to do. Take this pulpit in Mecca and preach. But this was not enough. The Ummah needed something more. So as a result, the Imam wanted to remove these roots of oppression and these roots of satanic and devilish thoughts and values. The Imam wanted to remove this, starting from Iraq. He wanted to secure Iraq, starting from Kufa. He wanted to secure Iraq. After that, he wanted to move towards Sham and remove these foundations of the Umayyad devilish values and re-establish the proper Islamic values. For people like Yazid, for example, he had punishments. He would be punished. Other people as such. Other people need to be guided, need to be helped, etc. This is what the Imam wanted to do. He wanted to return the rights of the oppressed. He wanted to remove the oppressors. He wanted to uphold the values of the Prophet ﷺ. So this was how the Imam practically wanted to perform Amr al-Ma'ruf and Nahy al-Munkar.
Okay. And also when discussing the event of Ashura, and since it was a war of values, reference is made to the 2 sides which were present, and normally the one side is named Husayniyat, which is what Imam Hussein alayhi salam stood for, and the other side is Yazidiyat, for the people who revolted against the Imam. So exactly what did these 2 sides stand for?
Of course, these 2 sides, if we come to conclude then what we have talked about today, these 2 sides, the side of Imam Hussein alayhi salam represents and symbolizes the proper values and Islamic values, humane values, humanity. The other side represents the devilish, dunya, materialistic values, which were represented at that time by the camp of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, by the camp of Yazid, the Umayyad camp at that time. After this, if we look at what Imam Hussein alayhi salam told Walid bin Utbah, who was one of the rulers of the Umayyad regime and Hijaz in Medina at that time, he told him, Ayyuha al-Amir, or maybe either Medina or Mecca, I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly. Ayyuha al-Amir, inna ahlu bayt al-nubuwa ma'adun al-risala. Oh, Amir, we are the household of prophethood and the place where the risala came, the message of Allah came. وَمُخْتَلَفُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ, and the place where the malaika come. The malaika used to come to the Prophet, etc. When the Imams were born, they would come. They even came to congratulate Imam Ali alayhi salam. According to some narrations, it is said that the Imam spoke to each malaika, to each malak, to each angel in his own language, to the extent that he spoke 120,000 languages, each with each angel. Okay? وَمَحَلُّ الرَّحْمَةِ, the place of rahmah. وَبِنَا فَتَحَ اللَّهُ بِنَا ختم, the place which I want to go is وَمِثْلِي لَا يُبَايُعْ مِثْلَهُ, and a person like me will never give allegiance to a person like him. So as a result, this, if we come to take this concept and theorize it, a person who holds the values of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, these values that we just mentioned, this person is called Husseini, and this system of values is called Husseiniyyat, among which especially is refusing oppression, and for there to be izzat, and many other values, 10 of which inshallah we will mention in the coming days. This is called the school of Husseiniyyat. On the other hand, لا يبايع مثله مثل Yazid, like Yazid. This person was a drinker of wine. He was overtly corrupt. He would kill people unjustly, etc. This is what Yazidiyat represents. And Yazidiyat and Husseiniyyat is a continuous historic reality, which also was during the time of other prophets as well. So this school right now, it continues, and it is for us to discern how to practice and embody these values and envisage these values of Imam Hussein in our characters today, and how to face the Yazidiyat values which are present in our world, in our modern world.
Okay, with that we come to the end of today's session, and thank you, Sheikh.
Thank you very much.
And to our viewers, thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to tune in to our next episode right here on IBN TV. Stay tuned for the next program.